What is up guys, Stark here. I am back for day 12 of the 25 Days of Fate, and in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at the schedule for the welfare servants that are slated to come back in 2019. So I won't really be taking a look at the events in depth or anything like that. I'm just going to be talking about the characters in general to kind of give you guys an idea of what characters are coming and what to expect when their event does roll around. I will be talking more about their events in depth and in detail when they do get closer to coming out on Global. So I'm going to save it for then, but for now, like I said, I'm just going to be talking about the characters themselves. So first up is going to be Oda Nobunaga. So she did return in March of 2017 for Japan, and pretty much everything in 2017 will translate to 2019 for us. So you could expect to see her coming sometime around March. Now, the dates are just speculation based on the Japanese schedule, but so far they've been pretty consistent. I mean, the dates haven't been the same, of course, but they've more or less been on the same path. So we can expect to see Oda first. So Oda is going to be a 4-star archer who is a pretty good character. She's actually one of the characters I need to finish maxing out. The thing about welfare servants is you get everything you need for that character in the event. So you'll get all the ascension materials and you'll get 5 copies of the character to max out their Noble Phantasm. And this is really good because having a Noble Phantasm level 5 is going to make it significantly stronger, and considering it's free, a lot of the times these welfare servants are very useful until you get your hands on a 5-star servant, and even then sometimes they can be better than those 5-star servants. So Nobunaga is really good. She has the ability to increase your party's Noble Phantasm generation, and she can do a ton of damage. Her main selling point is going to be primarily against sabers, which is her class advantage, and she can just tear up sabers. Most of them have the riding class, and her Noble Phantasm will do extra damage against characters with the riding trait. So it's going to be a really good option to take her onto those teams. It is also a AoE Noble Phantasm, so you're going to be able to hit the entire wave with it. And if you're going against a full wave of sabers, she's going to probably wipe out the entire wave. Next up, moving on to April for 2019, we have a new character and the first Berserker welfare servant, and that is going to be Cha-Cha. So Cha-Cha is not a character I'm very familiar with, considering I don't play the Japanese version of the game, but she should be the first new event that we're going to get in 2019, and as I said, she is a Berserker, and just looking at her skills and her Noble Phantasm, she looks like a pretty good option. For me, like personally, I have a lot of good 5-star Berserkers, so I don't know how much play she'll see for me. But as always, you should always get all the welfare servants because, as I'll talk about a little bit later on in the video, they don't come back very often. So you don't want to miss out a character and then need them later on. Just get all the characters, max them out. They're free to play, you don't have to spend money for them. If it's not an event you really don't want to get into, just get the copies, get the ascension materials, and then just move on. So Cha-Cha looks like a pretty solid character. Looking at her skills, she has the ability to increase her own Noble Phantasm gauge pretty good, you know, every turn for 3 turns, and also increasing her generation when she takes damage. She's able to get crit stars. This is kind of weird considering her absorption's at 10, and she reduces the entire team's critical star absorption except for herself by 50%. So I guess that's a way of getting her stars to do like crit damage and things like that. And then she does have a really nice skill there on the end, which will reduce enemies' defense every turn for 5 turns. So this will be very effective, like saying going against a boss with really high defense or a lot of HP. So you're going to be able to get the most out of those 5 turns. So overall, she looks like a pretty solid character, and obviously I'll have more details and information about her when I do her proper spotlight when her event does roll around. So next up, we have the event servant for May, and that is going to be BB. So BB is going to be a Moon Cancer, which is going to be a new class that is coming to the game next year, and she is one of the better event characters. She has fantastic stats, she has a really good kit of skills, she can do a ton of damage, and she's very unique and versatile. She has a healing skill, she has a stunning skill, and she has a damage skill. So she's pretty much got everything right there built into her own kit. And she also does have her Noble Phantasm, which will be able to increase the party's Noble Phantasm gauge while still dealing a really good amount of damage. So overall, she is a fantastic servant and definitely one of the characters you should be focused on maxing out. Moving on to June, we have the rerun of Sakata Kintoki's event. He is going to be a 4-star rider who is one of the best riders in the game just in general. He can do a ton of damage with his Noble Phantasm, and he's got an amazing kit of skills to back that up. being able to increase his own quick performance and charge his own Noble Phantasm gauge. He can also heal himself. He's pretty much a self-sufficient servant. He doesn't really need too much support in order to get the job done. So you could just throw him onto any team you need him on and throw in whatever kind of other characters you want. Moving on to July, we have the assassin version of Skahak. So she is a really good character as well, and she's going to be a quick-oriented servant that can focus on doing tons of damage while keeping her team alive. She has a taunt skill, and she also has a heal and like defense buff skill, which she can combo together in order to take less damage overall if she's using that taunt skill. And her Noble Phantasm is extremely powerful as well, being an AoE skill that can just dish out a ton of damage, again because they're welfare servants, so you can get their Noble Phantasm to level 5 very easily. And yeah, you know, it's just going to be a ton of damage, and she's a pretty good support character as well. And she has good star generation for an assassin, so yeah, she's just a really good character. So moving on to August 2019, we're actually going to have 2 events that we should be getting. The first one is going to introduce the new welfare servant, Paul Bunyan. So Paul is a 1-star servant, which is really weird. As a welfare servant, she is the only one who is going to be a 1-star servant, and will be a berserker. And just because they are a 1-star servant doesn't mean that they're bad. They're really good, and they have the ability to do a ton of damage. She's really good because all of her skills are AoE, so you can increase the Buster card effectiveness, party's critical damage, party's HP. You could also reduce the enemy's defense as well. So they're going to be able to do a ton of damage, and the Noble Phantasm on top of that, when comboed with her first skill, is going to do a ton of damage. And it's a very fast animation, so it's very useful for farming. And as a berserker, you're going to get a lot of class advantages, so you're going to be able to do a lot of extra damage. And they have a 4-card Buster deck, so again, it's primarily going to be used for farming, and you can do a ton of damage with it. But as a 1-star servant and a 1-star berserker, you're going to be dying really quickly with this character. She doesn't have a lot of HP, so she will fall really fast. So if you do want to use her, you'll have to use a lot of support characters in order to keep her alive. But she can dish out a lot of damage, and I know she has a heal, but sometimes if you're going against a higher level team, then they can wipe out 6,000 HP in one turn pretty easily if you get an unlucky turn where you just get focus fired on by the enemy. And then the second event coming in August 2019 is going to be Ishtar. So Ishtar is going to be a 4-star rider, and she's going to be a fantastic servant. She has the ability to increase the party's quick and buster card effectiveness for 3 turns, while also increasing their Noble Phantasm generation for 3 turns. She has a built-in evasion and crit damage buff, and then her third skill is really cool, where it'll grant her a whole bunch of different buffs. So she'll get invincibility, she'll increase her own critical damage, her star generation, her Noble Phantasm generation, her debuff resistance, and her healing received. But then unfortunately she will stun herself after that 1 turn. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You get a whole bunch of buffs and then you get stunned after it. But overall, she is a fantastic character, and she has one of the coolest welfare artworks that I've seen so far. Moving on to September, we have the rerun of the Elizabeth Brave event. So she is the typical standard Halloween character, and she will get her rerun here. She is a very good servant. She does have that really bizarre third skill that will reduce her own Noble Phantasm gauge by 100%, but grant one of the random buffs, which isn't a bad skill considering she's a welfare servant. So you're going to be able to get her Noble Phantasm charged really fast because you can overcharge it. So losing 100% on your Noble Phantasm gauge isn't awful, but still the cost sometimes isn't worth the reward. So moving on to October with the proper new Halloween event, and surprise surprise is going to be another event with Elizabeth, and in this one you're going to get the mecha version of her. This one is pretty unique in the fact that you have 2 options to choose from. You could either get the Mecha Elizabeth or the Mecha Elizabeth Mark II. They are the same characters, they do the same things, they have different artworks though, and they have different sprites, so it's really up to you which one that you want to pick. They are an alter ego character, which will be a new class coming as well, and overall they're a pretty decent character. They are pretty selfish though. Their skills do only affect themselves, but they can increase their critical stars, they can increase their defense, charge their own Noble Phantasm gauge, increase their own damage. So they have a lot of stuff, but it is primarily focused on just increasing their own stats as opposed to the party. Moving on to November, we have the rerun of the Santa Lily event, which should be pretty fresh in everyone's minds because they just It just finished over here on the global server. But this will get you the Lancer version of Joan of Arc in the Santa Lily form. She's a really good character. She has an AoE Noble Phantasm for Lancers, which is nice as a free-to-play servant. She can charge her own gauge, increase her own Buster Card effectiveness. You know, she has that skill that Jalter has, being able to increase your Buster Card performance and then get invincibility. So she can do some pretty good damage, and she also has a healing skill as well, which is going to be very helpful for support. And then finally, for December of 2019, we're going to have the new Christmas event, which is going to introduce the Santa version of Altera. So this will be a archer, and she's going to be a really good character. I really like her. She has the ability to charge one of your allies' Noble Phantasm gauges, as well as increasing their critical star generation. And you can also, on top of that, increase their Noble Phantasm damage and their critical damage. And then she also does have a defensive skill, being able to increase her own defense. But you also get some offensive abilities out of that, being able to increase your own critical star absorption and ignore invincibility for 3 turns. However, after those 3 turns, you're going to stun yourself for 1 turn. Now, I don't have a problem with this one. This, as opposed to, say, like what I was talking about with Ishtar, where you get your effects for 1 turn and then you get stunned for 1 turn. This one is a little bit different because you get 3 turns and then you get stunned for 1 turn. So you get more out of the skill. You have more time to play until you get stunned. So this is the type, if you're gonna get stunned, this would be the type of skill that I would rather see, where you get more than 1 turn of offensive capabilities out of it, and then you get stunned afterwards, after you do your damage and use your bursts and things like that. So overall, I think she's a very good character, and you know, I know she's a year away, but it's definitely something to be looking forward to. So there we go, guys. That is the list of characters to expect in 2019. Again, though, it was just the events and welfare servants, so I'm not talking about the banners or things like that, but maybe I could do that in a separate video. So as you guys noticed, not every character is coming back for 2019, and that is like the one thing that Fate, I wouldn't necessarily say does wrong, but it's one thing you have to be really careful with when you're playing the game. The event characters very rarely come back. Most of them only have come back twice. Well, no, they have like their first initial run and then they've come back 1 more time. So if you miss an event character, you're going to be waiting a long time in order to get that character back. So if we're just going ahead and scrolling through the other event characters that are currently on global. So we have Shiki, who is going to be the 4-star assassin. She is slated to come back in February of 2020. And then for Saber Lily, who was the pre-register character, she did have her own event, the Saber Wars, earlier on in the game. So you did have a second chance to get her, but she will be slated to come back in March 2020. And then we do have Irisfiel coming back in September 2020 as the 4-star caster. But that leaves the caster version of Halloween Elizabeth, Santa Alter, and Chloe as characters that just haven't come back. They're not slated to return, and who knows if they ever will. I expect Chloe to come back because she hasn't had a rerun yet on Japan or global, so I do expect her to come back maybe February 2021 for us, so maybe February next year for Japan. But still, that's like 3 years away, so you know, it sucks. I know Chloe's gone, so there's really nothing you could do about it, but you definitely want to get these event characters as they come along, because they don't always come back, and if they do, it could be 1-2 years before we even see them again. So that's going to wrap up this video, guys. I hope you guys liked it, and I hope it kind of gave you some sort of direction and where to go for 2019. If you liked the video, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and I have the links below to my Twitter, Twitch, Patreon, and Discord, as well as the link to the giveaway that I am running throughout the month of December and the 25 Days of Fate event. So if you haven't already, definitely check that out and enter for your chance to win some free Saint Quartz. And as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.